Imagine someone discovers this microscopic flaw in the design of the locks used on like every single front door in your city.
Oh, wow. Okay, that sounds like a nightmare.
Right. I mean, in the physical world, actually taking advantage of that flaw would be a total logistical nightmare. It would take criminals months, maybe even years, to physically walk from house to house, pick the locks and actually get inside.
Yeah, you definitely have time to notice a pattern.
Exactly. You'd have time to call a locksmith, warn your neighbors, but in the digital world, an artificial intelligence can find that exact same kind of flaw, write the lockpicking code, and break into, 10 million systems before you've even finished your morning coffee.
Yeah, the alarm doesn't just ring. The house is basically already empty by the time you wake up.
It's nuts. And that shrinking timeline, that exact phenomenon, is exactly what we are focusing on for today's deep dive. We're entering this completely unprecedented era of cyber warfare where the speed of an attack it's completely outpaced human response times.
It really has. We aren't talking about, months of slow diplomatic buildup anymore. We're talking about global infrastructure being compromised in literal milliseconds.
Right. So to map out how this is happening, and I guess more importantly, how we actually survive it, we are pulling from a really fascinating stack of sources today.
Yeah, we have a rare joint warning from the Five Eyes intelligence agencies, which was detailed in a recent ABC News report. Plus, we've got a Federal News Network policy memo that kind of pulls back the curtain on the government's struggle to mandate cybersecurity in these massive infrastructure projects.
And we also have the raw technical specs from an endpoint recovery platform called Swimmage, just to get into the actual weeds of it.
Yeah, the real mechanical side.
Exactly. So our mission today is to connect all those dots. We are going to trace this modern arms race from the highest levels of global intelligence warnings through all the frustrating gridlock of federal policy, all the way down to the literal mechanics of how a single infected laptop on a desk somewhere manages to surgically rebuild itself in 15 minutes.
It's a huge journey.
It is. And whether you're, prepping for an IT strategy meeting or you just want to know why your personal data or your local water supply or your power grid are constantly at risk, we are going to bridge the gap between global policy and the actual device you are listening to right now.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, let's unpack this. I really want to start with this ABC News report about the Five Eyes. And for anyone listening who might not be super familiar, the Five Eyes is this major intelligence alliance, right? It's the US, the UK, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand.
Yeah, they share global signals intelligence constantly, behind closed doors mostly.
Right, but they very rarely get on the same public microphone to issue a joint statement.
No, almost never. When they do, it is basically the intelligence equivalent of a blaring siren. And the core of their warning this time is intensely focused on the dual-edged sword of artificial intelligence.
Because historically, if you wanted to find what the industry calls a zero-day vulnerability.
Right, which is a flaw in software that the creator doesn't even know exists yet. Meaning defenders have literally 0 days to fix it.
Exactly. If you wanted to find one of those, you needed highly specialized, usually state-sponsored teams. You needed millions of dollars and months of research.
Yeah, it was a heavy lift.
Yeah.
But the Five Eyes report points out that AI has entirely obliterated that barrier to entry. Malicious actors, they don't need a team of elite hackers anymore.
They just need the right prompt.
Pretty much. They can use AI tools to automatically scan global networks, find unpatched systems, and just generate the exploit code instantly. It shrinks the window between someone discovering a vulnerability and someone actively exploiting it down to practically zero lag time.
That speed is just staggering.
It is, which is why the twist in this intelligence warning is so critical. AI isn't just the ultimate weapon here, it is actually the only viable shield.
Because you can't just have a guy watching a screen anymore.
Exactly. You cannot use human eyes monitoring a dashboard to catch an AI-driven attack. It just moves way too fast. Organizations have to use defensive AI tools to monitor unusual network behavior and detect vulnerabilities early.
And the report specifically highlights that legacy systems, meaning computers running old unsupported software, those are massive soft targets because they completely lack these adaptable defenses.
Are basically sitting ducks.
Right. And to understand just how powerful these AI tools are getting, we have to look at a specific development mentioned in the ABC report regarding the AI company Anthropic. And just to pause here for a second, to be completely clear with you listening, we are just looking at the mechanics of the policy here without taking any political stance or endorsing any political viewpoint. We are strictly reporting what is in the source material.
Right, just laying out the facts of the report.
Exactly. So the report notes that Anthropic offered access to its highly advanced Mythos AI tool to several Australian government and corporate entities, basically to help map and strengthen their cyber defenses. But just days later, the Trump administration stepped in and issued an order limiting foreign nationals' access to Anthropic's most advanced AI models.
Right, specifically Mythos 5 and Fable 5.
Yeah, citing severe national security concerns.
And that intervention really underscores the dual-use nature of this technology. I mean, according to the reporting, Mythos is considered so incredibly powerful at identifying software and network flaws that even Anthropic itself has deliberately limited access to it.
Which is wild to think about.
It is. But think about the logic there. A tool that can flawlessly map out your network's vulnerabilities to protect you can, by definition, flawlessly map out those exact same vulnerabilities to destroy you.
Wow. Yeah, if that capability falls into the wrong hands, it is basically game over.
Exactly. Which explains why the intelligence community is so incredibly on edge right now.
But the ABC report also throws this fascinating curveball in there. Amidst all this talk of hyper-advanced AI, Australian and Five Eyes intelligence are actually warning about Chinese spies using fake job advertisements on platforms like LinkedIn.
Yes.
I saw that. Right, like they are actively trying to lure in recruits who have authorized access to sensitive information.
It just proves that the human element remains the ultimate backdoor.
Right.
You know, you can have the most advanced defensive AI in the entire world, but if an employee with high-level clearance clicks a malicious link hidden in, like a lucrative fake job offer, the attackers just bypass the digital locks entirely.
It is so true. It's like biological warfare versus an immune system. You can't fight a fast mutating, highly contagious virus by just, building a static stone wall or keeping a spreadsheet of your symptoms.
Right, a spreadsheet isn't going to save you.
No, you need an active, adaptable immune system that learns and responds in real time. That is what defensive AI provides. But if a human being willingly swallows the virus, the immune system has to work twice as hard.
What's fascinating here is how the Five Eyes agencies are framing this reality for leadership. They're practically begging government and corporate leaders to stop viewing cybersecurity as merely an IT issue.
Because for decades it was, right?
Totally. For decades, cyber was just something relegated to the basement, just a line item on the IT department's budget. But the Five Eyes are arguing that this is now a core pillar of market confidence. If your digital infrastructure isn't secure from these millisecond attacks, your entire operational capacity is just a house of cards.
Which brings us to a massive contradiction.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, because if the intelligence agencies are screaming from the rooftops about this and AI threats are moving at light speed to target critical infrastructure, then surely the government is mandating these advanced defenses in their infrastructure spending, right?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, you would certainly assume that is the case. But the Federal News Network policy memo paints a very, very different reality.
Yeah, it really does.
Policymakers are genuinely struggling to integrate those defenses.
The memo cites research from the Institute for Security and Technology, the IST, which basically outlines some massive missed opportunities. Like, take the bipartisan infrastructure law, the BIL.
The big one.
Yeah, we are talking about $1.2 trillion to rebuild local roads, bridges, power grids, and drinking water utilities. And every single one of those projects is going to involve digitizing infrastructure. So you'd think strict cybersecurity mandates would be baked into every single dollar handed out.
Yet they weren't.
No.
The IST points out that while the law did create a separate, isolated $1 billion grant specifically for state and local cyber programs, the broader $1.2 trillion in infrastructure spending had very little in the way of hard, enforceable cybersecurity planning requirements.
So we are essentially funding the mass digitization of our critical infrastructure without universally demanding that those new systems are actually secured by design.
Basically, yeah.
And again, stepping in with a quick neutrality directive for you listening, we are strictly reporting the source text regarding the Biden administration's actions here. We are not criticizing or endorsing their policy choices. We are just looking at the facts of how this played out in the text.
Right, just following the memo's timeline.
Exactly. So according to the reporting, officials from the Office of the National Cyber Director and the National Security Council inside the Biden administration absolutely did try to attach robust cybersecurity measures to this funding, but they ran into some severe practical hurdles.
Yeah, the intention basically hit a wall of reality. First off, there was a widespread fear that imposing really strict advanced cybersecurity requirements would essentially price small businesses out of competing for federal funds.
Oh, I can totally imagine that being a huge sticking point. I mean, you can't ask a tiny rural water treatment facility to go out and hire a $200,000 a year cybersecurity architect just to qualify for a grant to upgrade their physical pipes.
Right. They just don't have the budget. They don't have the personnel.
No, not at all.
Precisely. And the second major hurdle was actually on the government side. The federal agencies responsible for handing out these grants openly admitted they lacked the internal expertise to even evaluate the complex cybersecurity plans that grantees would submit.
Wow. So they couldn't even read the plans if they got them.
Exactly. They simply didn't have the specialized workforce to grade the homework.
So the result, according to the IST report, was that the government issued these notices of funding opportunities, or no FOs, with just incredibly vague language about the importance of cybersecurity.
Right, like, please try to be secure.
Yeah. It was highly suggested, maybe encouraged, but nearly impossible to enforce.
And vague suggestions are a massive vulnerability when you consider who is currently knocking on the door. I mean, the Federal News Network piece explicitly mentions the threat of Volt Typhoon.
Oh, right.
Yeah, this is a known China-connected hacking group that has already infiltrated U.S. critical infrastructure. And they aren't always there to steal data. Often they are just pre-positioning themselves.
It's waiting.
Exactly. They're infiltrating systems and lying in wait so that in the event of a future geopolitical conflict, they can instantly disrupt water, power, and communications.
So they're essentially planting digital landmines in the exact same infrastructure we are currently spending $1 trillion to upgrade.
Yeah, it's a terrifying thought.
It really is. So if vague suggestions aren't working, what are the proposed policy solutions to actually fix this gridlock?
Well, the report highlights a few models. The Office of the National Cyber Director did put out a playbook to help agencies strengthen their grant requirements. But the more compelling model actually comes from the Energy Department.
Okay.
Their Office of Cybersecurity, Energy Security, and Emergency Response, CSER for short, is actually reviewing cyber plans submitted by infrastructure awardees.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that means real cyber experts are actually examining the digital blueprints before the money goes out.
Okay, but even that program isn't fully mandatory across every single agency.
No, it's not.
And here's where it gets really interesting for me, and I kind of want to push back on this a bit, because the IST report brings up the idea of a mandatory cybersecurity set-aside.
Right.
Basically a rule stating that a specific percentage of any federal grant money must be spent on cyber defense. They note that industry research shows about 10% of standard IT budgets naturally goes to security. So my question is, why is the government so hesitant to just mandate a 10% set aside for critical infrastructure?
It's a fair question.
Like, why is it so hard to treat cybersecurity like a physical lock on a physical door? If you use federal money to build a new courthouse, you don't make the locks on the front door optional just to save money, right?
No, you don't. It's a compelling analogy for sure. But a digital lock is just infinitely more complex to verify than a physical one.
How so?
Well, if you mandate that 10% must be spent on cyber, you have to be able to prove that the money was spent effectively, not just, thrown at some outdated firewall subscription to check a compliance box.
I see.
And as we just discussed, the agencies lack the personnel to audit those specific expenditures. However, the IST's ultimate warning is stark, and it really validates your point. You cannot look the public in the eye, call cybersecurity a top-tier national security issue, and then simultaneously refuse to devote mandatory upfront resources to it when you are literally funding new infrastructure.
Right. If you don't build the locks now, you are just diffusing the risk onto the local hospitals and water plants down the line.
Exactly.
So if Washington is paralyzed by auditing fears and these vague no FOs and malicious AI is moving at light speed, what happens to that local hospital or water plant when they inevitably get hit by ransomware today? I mean, how do they actually survive? We have to move from policy theory to the actual ground war here.
That brings us perfectly to our third source. We are looking at the technical documentation for Swimmage, which is an automated endpoint management and incident response tool.
Endpoint meaning like individual laptops or servers.
Exactly. And this documentation is fascinating because it completely abandons the fantasy of perfect prevention. It treats a cyber attack not as a possibility, but as an absolute when, not if certainty.
That makes sense. They outline the 4 stages of incident response in the specs, and it really is a masterclass in how modern automated defense actually operates. Stage 1 is preparation.
But this isn't just installing an antivirus scanner, right?
No, not at all. This is about deeply instrumenting the environment to listen for triggers. You have to establish a behavioral baseline of what normal activity looks like on your specific network.
And that baseline is crucial. An automated system needs to be able to distinguish between, say, a user simply forgetting their password a few times.
Which happens all the time.
Right. It has to know the difference between that and a malicious rootkit, which, for those who don't know, is a virus that buries itself so deep it actually controls the operating system itself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it tries to silently alter administrative privileges. By knowing what normal looks like, the AI can instantly detect a deviation.
Which triggers stage 2, detection and analysis. This is where the platform kicks into high gear to safeguard its own agents on the endpoints. It's essentially throwing up shields around its own defensive tools so the malware can't blind it.
That's smart.
But the most interesting mechanism here, I think, is the forensics. It automatically captures a memory and disk image of the infected machine. It's like capturing the virus in a secure petri dish.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Because you don't just want to kill the infection, right? You want to isolate its DNA so your systems can study it and inoculate the rest of your network.
Yes, that forensic snapshot is absolutely vital for attribution and for future defense. And then the system immediately moves to stage 3, which is really the most critical phase: containment, eradication, and recovery.
The big guns.
Exactly. The literal millisecond that anomalous activity is confirmed, the system isolates the impacted networks. It autonomously updates firewall filters, closes specific communication ports, and blocks unauthorized access.
So it basically quarantines the infection instantly so it can't spread to other computers.
Exactly. And then it completely rebuilds the affected systems from known good sources. It wipes out the rootkits, installs the latest patches, and restores the system to normal operations.
That is incredible. And stage 4 is post-incident activity, where the system basically creates new rule sets based on the lessons learned in that petri dish we talked about and enforces them globally across the network.
The truly staggering detail in the swimmage specs, though, is the timeline.
Oh yeah, this is wild.
They state that this entire recovery process, like completely rebuilding a crashed, ransomware-locked PC, happens in under 15 minutes.
Okay, I have to ask how that actually works, because if a computer is entirely locked down by a rootkit or by ransomware, it usually gets taken offline to prevent the virus from spreading.
Right. Pull the plug.
Yeah. But if it's offline, it can't talk to the cloud to download a clean operating system. So how does it rebuild itself in 15 minutes without an internet connection?
That is the absolute brilliance of the mechanism. The recovery doesn't rely on the cloud at all.
Real.
Swimmage uses an embedded deployment kit that is already hidden on the device itself.
Oh, wow.
Think of it like a highly secure, heavily armored panic room built right inside the computer's hard drive.
Okay.
It's a secure partition that the ransomware literally cannot see or access. So when the automated system triggers a rebuild, that clean room bursts open and overwrites the infected drive from the inside out.
That is genius.
Right, because all the necessary files, operating systems, and configurations are already stored locally in that secure partition. It completely wipes the machine and reinstalls everything perfectly in minutes. And it is a completely zero touch.
And the specs say there is zero data loss. Plus, it enforces what they call a zero trust architecture immediately upon rebuild.
Which is huge.
Right. And just to clarify that term, zero trust is exactly what it sounds like. Think of a high security building where your ID badge is checked at every single door, not just the front lobby.
Yep, trust no one.
It forces the rebuilt device to prove it meets strict federal security standards. Things like SOC2, HIPAA, and FIPS, which involves like military-grade encryption checks before it is ever allowed to reconnect to the broader network.
This raises an important question about the future of IT infrastructure. I mean, looking at this 15-minute entirely automated rebuild, the goal is clearly to completely remove the human IT guy from the crisis moment.
Right, because it sounds like human panic, like the frantic scramble to figure out which server to unplug or which admin password to use is actually the biggest vulnerability during a live ransomware attack.
It definitely is.
And this software just takes the human out of the loop entirely.
And honestly, it has to. Human panic causes delays. And in a landscape where attacks happen in milliseconds, delays are what allow ransomware to spread across an entire network.
It's just math at that point.
Exactly. By automating the containment and the internal rebuilding process, organizations eliminate the downtime and the human error that make those legacy systems, the exact ones the Five Eyes warned us about, so incredibly dangerous. Your
Mm.
defense cannot wait for a human being to process what is happening. It has to be an automated reflex.
So what does this all mean? I mean, we've covered a massive amount of ground today. We started with the harsh reality from global intelligence that AI has fundamentally changed the physics of cyber warfare, right? Supercharging the speed of both the attacks and the necessary defenses.
Yep, a millisecond arms race.
Exactly. And then we saw how our federal policy is genuinely paralyzed, just struggling to mandate digital locks on billion-dollar infrastructure projects because of budget fears and a severe lack of auditing expertise.
Right, the NOFOs and the gridlock.
And finally, we saw how private, automated tools are stepping into that massive void to fight the ground war, isolating threats and using those hidden, secure partitions to rebuild infected systems from scratch in just 15 minutes, entirely without a single human keystroke.
Yeah. The takeaway for you listening to this is that the paradigm has completely shifted. Regardless of your role, whether you manage a tiny rural water facility or run a massive corporate team, or you just want to keep your personal data safe on your home network, cybersecurity can no longer be viewed as an occasional software patch.
Or like a training module you click through once a year.
Exactly. It must be an automated, continuous, and highly adaptable reflex. The literal infrastructure of our daily lives, from the water we drink to the power grid keeping the lights on, genuinely depends on it.
It's a lot to wrap your head around, and I actually want to leave you with a final, slightly mind-bending thought to mull over.
Oh, already.
If malicious AI is now finding and exploiting network vulnerabilities in milliseconds, and defensive AI is instantly detecting those breaches, quarantining them, and rebuilding entire systems from secure partitions in 15 minutes entirely without human intervention, are we rapidly approaching a future where human oversight in cybersecurity isn't just slow, but is actually a liability?
Right.
Like, will the cyber wars of tomorrow be fought entirely by autonomous algorithms operating at the speed of light, while we humans just sit back and watch the dashboards blink, hoping our immune system wins the fight?
That is a terrifying but very real possibility.
Something to think about the next time you get a notification to update your software. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive, and as always, keep questioning the world around you.